Hi, my name is James Harward. For those of you that don't know me, I am one of the night instructors here at Mountain Land Technical College, and I'm here at the Department of Workforce Services right now to talk about resumes. Do you two want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Bryce Larson. I'm actually employment counselor here at Workforce Services in Spanish Fork.
My name is Brian Kessinger, and I work mostly with employers for the Department of Workforce Services.
So part of my goal in getting these two to talk to us, and I really appreciate them doing that, but is for you to get a little bit of a taste for what the Department of Workforce Service can do for you, as well as some mistakes to avoid on resumes, as well as some of the best practices to go with. But before we get into that, could you tell us about your Utah County locations?
Yes, we have 3 locations in Utah County. We have one in Lehigh, one in Provo, and then one in Spanish Fork. We're currently at the Spanish Fork location, and just as a side note, the Department of Workforce Services has offices in every county in Utah except for one county. James, any guesses on what that one county might be?
Garfield County.
Nope. Bryce?
Uinta.
No.
Oh,
Daggett County.
Of course,
Have you ever
Daggett.
heard of Daggett County? It's in the corner of our state. We don't have an office there, but every other county we have an office in.
Sounds great. Well, what can the Department of Workforce Services do for them? So for you all, you've got an opportunity to come talk with these people at these different offices. And so that's what I want you to understand, what this can actually do for you.
So the Department of Workforce Services, we're a state-run agency. We offer a lot of services, mostly for those that are in economic hardship situations. And so I actually have a booklet here that covers everything that we do, and I'll leave this with you, James. But we have child care services, we have eligibility services, is like for food stamps and Medicaid. We have housing and development programs, refugee programs, rehabilitation for those that are have some sort of disability and need some retraining to get back into work. We have unemployment insurance. If you lose your job, no fault of your own, you can get a weekly claim to kind of hold you over, get some cash in your pocket while you're looking for another job. We work for the Workforce Development Division, so we do a lot of retraining. So we have opportunities with on-the-job training, internships, apprenticeships, and then we have workforce and research analysis. This is like the state economists that are looking at wage data, looking at jobs for the future. What are the jobs like? What do the wages look like for the future? What are those projections of occupations in demand? And so we have a lot of statistical data that you can look at. So there's a lot of stuff here. Our department does a whole lot, but today we're just going to focus on helping you, get a job, and what is the tool of the resume.
Yeah, and so part of the biggest key in my mind is you help people find work, and companies come to you to help them
Find people.
find people. So,
Absolutely.
So it's a great combination of you're not just treading water yourself trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do?
Right. And so I specifically help employers to recruit the best possible candidates. And so that puts me in a position that I know what the employers are looking for and what a good job seeker looks like, what a good job candidate looks like. And then as I get to develop a relationship with these employers and these businesses, then I can go to my coworker and say, hey, Bryce, I know this company is looking for this. And he has a caseload and people that he's working with. And so he gets them job ready, and we network together and help them get an interview and help them get a job. And so we definitely kind of cross this bridge of working with both the job seekers and the employers and try to make that perfect match.
And I was just going to say, if you haven't been into a workforce services in a while, the typical process would be you would walk in, you'd be greeted by someone at our front counter. They would then, direct you to any needs that you would do. So one of the cool things is they would actually have you get on a computer. You would update what we call your profile. we'd really want to work on making sure that that profile was a quality registration, meaning do we have a resume uploaded into the website? Do we have the types of jobs that we'd be interested in? If we have that information, then when Brian's out talking to the employers and they decide we want to work through workforce services, they can then do a search for all of the people that would fit those criteria. And if they come across your profile and it's not updated, you could be losing an opportunity to doing that, along with not only creating your profile for job search, job readiness. You could also do some online workshops through the workforce services. A lot of people don't realize that those resources are there. It could even help you with different tips. And then there's links to other sites like utahfutures.org, which is a great one if you're needing to pick up some skills in an area or want to know what are the different ranges for jobs, what types of jobs are out there. So they'll be able to direct you there. So I think it's a good combination between what Brian does and what our workforce service team in the front area can do. And then if you do get assigned for other needs to a case manager like myself, then we can individualize all of these services directly to you, and then come to Brian and specifically say, hey, we have this person that's really interested in digital marketing. What do you have available, or what employers have you spoken to? And their resources then can be added to it. So I just thought I'd tell you a little bit about how workforce services works if you haven't been into one of our facilities in a while.
That's really good. I want to go back to this profile, because when you go log into our website
And what's the website?
it's jobs.utah.gov. So it's with an S, JOBS, jobs.utah.gov. And when you log into our website, this profile is pretty important, because as I'm working with employers, they'll log in and they'll search for resumes. And so this is kind of like an online resume or an online profile. And so I've seen several times where an employer will log in looking for job seekers, looking for job candidates, and they'll invite them to come in for an interview. And the job seeker will say, well, I didn't even apply for that. I didn't even know, I just created this profile, and I didn't even know that job opening existed, and the employer's reaching out to me. So in a sense, you have a resume. The job of the resume is just to get you an interview. Well, sometimes our website is creating this matching process so you can get an interview just by completing your profile. So if your profile is complete, and there's a progress bar, I think there's like 100%. Mm-hmm. It goes from 0 to 100%. But the more complete your profile is, then the better matches you're going to get when an employer logs on and starts looking for job seekers. So if you have a really strong profile, you could get an interview request without even applying for the job. We see that quite frequently.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So I want you to repeat that quote one more time. The job of the resume is to what?
The job of the resume is to get the interview. And so sometimes we kind of focus so much on the resume. The resume is important. I don't want to downplay that. But we have people that pay, I've heard thousands of dollars will pay for a professional job coach to create the resume, or the last I've heard was like $300. So $300 to $1,000 that people will get help to create a resume, and I'm like, what? The only thing the resume is supposed to do is get you the interview, and I can get you an interview by picking up the phone and networking. I can spend some time on LinkedIn and network. Go to your local church, go to a community event, and networking can get you a resume. Yeah. So sometimes you can even bypass that process of a resume. So really the job of the resume is to get you an interview.
I like to have that be clear, so that, because some people feel like it's the end-all be-all to getting a job. But there's a bit more than that. And
let's talk about statistics too. I'm going to jump in a little bit and interrupt
absolutely.
you.
Go for it.
Mr. James, teacher, professor, man.
Did you raise your hand?
Dr. Harwood? No, that's not your last name. What is your last
Harwood.
name? Harwood.
Yeah.
Dr. Harwood? Okay, no, just kidding. All right, so the resume, here's some statistics. The average time spent on a resume by HR technicians is 8 seconds. So So 8 seconds is all your resume gets. If you have a nice cover letter, you can add 90 seconds, a minute and a half that you could expect someone to read a good cover letter. That's it. That's all you get. Now, if you network with somebody, a friend, a family member, or even network your way into an HR position or personnel person, you can get 5 to 10 minutes. If they're really desperate and looking for a candidate, you can get more time to sell yourself. And so you kind of want to put these numbers into content because you are competing with other people. And so you need to kind of just figure out how to be creative. And there's tools out there with LinkedIn and other social media. And if you're a good candidate, you can just expect that you're going to get social media stalking time. They're going to go out and look at your Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn account. They're gonna check you out, and so you want to make sure that you're not giving them reasons not to interview you, and not have unprofessional posts or pictures. You see that a lot.
I do, and so one of the things that I also would recommend is there are many ways to market yourself. Make sure your social media is marketing you in the right light. Brian mentioned LinkedIn. Another great thing, back to the profile that you could create at Workforce Services at jobs.utah.gov, is you can actually, part of it is you can add in your social media. I would recommend having a LinkedIn that can then direct you to that. The other point I was going to make is just having a resume may not be enough. 8 seconds might be enough time to write a bull, right? But it might not be enough time to get you the job. But if you can have a nice cover letter, a nice resume, direct them to your social media sites, and network with people that you know, that can lead you a lot of times to a recruiter. Once you start getting with an individualized recruiter, they're going to spend a lot more time with you so that they can present you to the different company and get you more airtime, so to speak, with that person, so that they're more interested in having you come in for that very important sit-down, face-to-face interview with the company.
So let's talk about the things not to do. So you don't want to have unprofessional pictures or unprofessional posts or political posts. You don't want to give a reason to the employer not to look at you, right?
Correct. Yeah.
There were some other things that you were talking about, like what not to do on the resume.
So a couple things that I would recommend right off the bat is a lot of times people want to put where they live, their address, thinking that will be important. That kind of information could actually hurt you. Let's say you're living down here in Spanish Fork area. You want to maybe look a little more north towards, let's say, South Jordan. There's a perfect job for you. You don't want the person with that limited time to look at your resume, and the first thing they're going to look at is your name, and then they're going to say, oh, they live in Spanish Fork, maybe I passed this individual just because of distance. It's really going to be on you to get to the job, not for them to prejudge that you can't make it to the job, if that makes sense. So keep it very simple. Keep it with your name, your phone number. They need to know how to get a hold of you. And then do have an email. With the email, try to stay away from maybe your nickname or your favorite, sports number. Try to make it as professional and as close to your name as possible. I'd recommend using Gmail versus some of the old school Hotmail, Yahoo type search.
I saw a
engines.
Juno.com.
Juno, yeah.
That was
Yeah, and we see that, and I'm sure with your students being, in the world that they are with the digital media, they're going to be more up on
more technical savvy.
But if they do have an older, email, I would suggest not having that be on there. Then
it might be time to get a new one for a more professional.
Yeah, have it just for the job search. You can keep we all want to have one to maybe put our spam mail or something to. I have an account That's if someone wants my email and I don't know them and I don't know what information they might want to send me, I send them to that because I don't check it as often. I don't care what they send me there. But if I'm looking for work, I want to go through my Gmail account that I've set up to have a better chance of that. And then the next, you want to make sure your resume is formatted correctly. I've provided a few samples. You guys can't see those samples, but I'll provide those and maybe you can upload them into the system. But make sure you have some kind of a summary. It can be a professional summary, what you're looking for. Maybe avoid putting in how much you love arts and crafts and that you're really good at sports or whatever might be in there. That 8 seconds isn't going to really pertain to that. Make sure you have a work history. If you have some dates that are maybe not as consistent as you would like, maybe try not sending a resume with a date. I'm old, so it used to be where if you stay at a job a long time, employers really, really looked for that. They love that. Now they kind of expect that there's going to be a 2-year, 3-year window, maybe more, but it's not looked at as importantly as it was once. So I think the dates of things are not there. I would avoid the year, or not the year, I'm sorry, the month. I would just do year to year would be another key. So if you worked January of 2019 and then you lost that job February of 20, you might want to just put 19 to 20. Let them kind of see maybe a little bit longer area. And then don't put professional references available upon request. That also will date you. But I do see people seeing there are some websites that still have that out there. Well, those websites were probably created 15, 20 years ago, and that's what was looked at, but not now. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I want to touch on real quick the work history. For my students who are asking, well, I don't have a work history, what do I put there? Because we don't want a whole bunch of white space either. Do you have any suggestions on what can not look bad at, but also...
So why Bryce is thinking about this question, because I can see his eyes and wheels turning.
They're rolling.
They're rolling and thinking.
Yeah.
But one thought that I had is there's two kind of resume techniques or strategies. One is like your customized resume, where you want to, in my mind, the job description is a problem statement, right? And so employers are for-profit companies, are usually only exist to make money, and you have to see yourself as a solution that can go in there and help that company make money. So if you think of the job description as a problem statement and you are the solution to that problem, a lot of times you can copy and paste that job description and set it aside and use that as a guide to customize your resume for every job that you're applying for. So that's one strategy, is let's say customized resume for every job you're applying for, and you copy and paste that problem statement or job description and you use that as a guide to get in the right vocabulary or the right jargon, the right lingo that business is looking for. Because if they only have 8 seconds, they're scanning for keywords that they're looking for. And so you might as well use their own keywords to fill in that gap. Now that's one strategy. The other strategy is just your universal resume that you're just going to apply for everything. And that's where Bryce is kind of the expert. And so I have another question to add on to James that, so when you don't have the work history, what do? That's the first question.
Right.
My second question to add to that is, what strategy you like the best? Is the universal one resume fits all, or this customized, problem statement resume strategy?
Yeah. One of the things that I always have people do is make sure you have one resume that is kind of your base that you're going to use for other jobs. Pulling the job description from the actual website of the company, seeing what they're looking for would be a good way to match some of your skills. If you don't have a work history, hopefully you have some life experience. maybe you could go with that. You'd have to look for some other creative ways to maybe make your resume. But I think something like that, James, might actually be better to really try to direct them to your social media page, because there you can have more projects and things that you've done. Maybe even your hobbies can be there. A lot of those things that would catch their eye. But it does create some issues not having a work history, but there are some clever ways that you can do it by maybe listing some school experience, stuff that would relate, like Brian said, solution to the problem, which is they need to hire someone. How would you fit that? So maybe that would be more like in your cover letter might be a good way to kind of express that without the resume. Just trying, like I said, to have multiple ways to get into a company, especially if you don't have a traditional, I've worked these 2 or 3 jobs situation. Yeah.
Which makes sense. And I'm going to interject just a little bit too of we don't require an internship at MTech, which some people have different views on whether we should or not, but why don't you create your own? Find a good nonprofit, because people like to see that. And sometimes that could be your charitable donation. That can be you getting your foot in the door, that I worked with this company for 4 months. And that's not a bad thing when you're thinking on internship concepts of 4 months. But you've got experience doing real world.
I like that too, because sometimes we think work experience is like, well, the obvious employment, right? You're getting paid and compensated for a certain job with job duties. But a lot of times the employer wants to know, can you do the job? And so if you have a skill set or a life experience or something that can go beyond not being paid. I mean, right now we have a lot of self-taught computer programmers or self-taught individuals that are learning a skill just by watching YouTube. I'm a YouTube mechanic. I can fix anything if I can find the right YouTube, clip and watch that. So there's something to be said that, you can go beyond the work experience heading into different skill sets so that you might possess that the employer wants to hear. And so come up with a title. Your resume can be, creative, and you can have a heading that's specific to yours. You don't want it to go too crazy that says something like, hey, this is stuff I know. That's not the best professional heading, but you could have something that says, skill sets or help me out here. What would be a good professional heading that goes beyond the work history?
I think it would be based on a couple things we've mentioned, doing some research on the company, the position that they're looking for, try to, do that and then you can use, keywords, skilled or experienced or passionate, something of that nature, about that particular field of interest, whether it be graphic design or, whatever area that they may be going into with the digital marketing. Maybe it is the marketing piece. You want to manage the website. So list that maybe as your catchy summary or heading or what you're looking for, and then here are some of the things I've done. And then once again, I would direct them to your multimedia, because that's going to give them a better chance to know who you are if they want to go past that point. But at least catch that moment in that 8 seconds the best you can with the resume.
Okay.
I think.
And I like what James is saying about nonprofits. So you feel like you're lacking in those type of experiences, go out and create your own experiences. You can call 211 on your cell phone. Just call 211 and it'll attach to United Way of Utah County, and you can ask for volunteer experiences and what you're looking for, and you can create your own experiences and things that you can learn on service projects or an unpaid internship, donating your time to beef up someone's website or create a logo for somebody. All that is experience that you can capture on your website that makes you a more attractive candidate for certain jobs.
So you're not just waiting for people to give you the opportunity. You're
Right.
taking control of yourself and your future.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like registering to go to school. You had to deliberately do something to better yourself in life. apply that to some of these other things. If you don't have the experience, take control of it. Make a situation that you've got the control.
Yeah, get creative. I
Well-
think would be a key there, right? Get creative and network. Ask. If you get something. I used to be in sales, and that would always be the thing that you would look for is, are you asking for the sale? Very few salespeople, believe it or not, ask for the sale. And they may be afraid of that, but they miss even an extra piece in sales where they don't ask for the next person referral. Who can they contact? Who do they know? That type of thing. So I think that goes right along with this as well, is do your own networking, find those opportunities. Like Brian said, that was 211, not 911. We don't want to confuse anyone. So 211. Look for some opportunities. Create this for yourself. You guys are creative individuals. That's why they're in this program. So I would think use that same skill set to be creative and proactive in finding employment.
So let's take a look at these resumes.
Okay.
And this one, I think would be valuable to talk about.
Okay.
So
I guess we can show it up there
Yeah.
the best we can.
Yep.
This is a very good resume, in my opinion. It has a nice, solid color scheme. It's not multiple colors, but it does capture what they're looking for. It talks about their professional summary, their work history, has their skills. These skills will be changed to match the job that they're applying for. It has a great Gmail address on there, the education. But maybe the surprising thing about this resume, James, would be this particular individual had been in and out of the jail system, which Brian and I both work closely with. But you would not, from the resume, know that this individual had a past or a history with that, which is fine. He will have to disclose that information in an interview through the application process at some point, but we don't want to capture that in that limited 8 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever it is. We want to make sure that this gets him in the door. Back to our original point of the resume is to get you the interview, not the job.
Yeah.
So I think that would be some keys on that.
I like
on
how
that
this
resume.
could be universal, where you can adapt the skills
Yes.
and your professional summary to the job description that you're applying for. So it's a very adjustable, flexible resume template.
Yeah, so I would say don't fall in love with your resume. Be able to adjust it for the job that you're applying for, and that really comes in the skills and that summary of what you're looking for, your objective. It's very hard in a lot of resumes, though, to have quantifying information, but if you can go back to what Brian said and have that problem solving abilities and show the results from that in your resume, those are much more effective. They're harder to create, I will say that. That's why a lot of these samples don't have that. But it also is individualized. I didn't work for these places, so the individual has to really find out what were the solutions. We talk about that, but we also want to present a resume so they can start looking for work. So I would think those are some keys to that particular resume.
And part of why I liked that concept is we're accentuating the good
Right.
and not accentuating the bad.
Correct.
And like we said, the work experience. If we don't have the work experience, find a way to accentuate the good without having it be a big
Right.
thing that stands out.
Well, and this individual needs to be able to find employment. If they can find employment, then they can reverse the cycle and, be a productive, citizen. So why not help them in every way we can for that? Did you have
I was just
points on
thinking, to state the obvious, it'd be kind of, interesting or defeat the purpose if on this resume it says, I have a criminal record and felony and theft, and I'm a sex offender, or
They weren't that, though. So,
yeah, well, I have a criminal record with 5 felonies. I mean, so obviously you're trying to sell yourself, and there's a time to disclose that, and I would recommend that you do disclose that in person before they find out on your own. But these are resumes that are looking at your best. You're bringing your best self to these interviews, and to your resume should reflect that. And one thing, this is kind of off the topic a little bit, but we'll get back to the resumes here in a second. But I think once you get the job, you need to think that you're having an interview all the time. I can't stress how some people will like, oh, I got the job and I sold myself in the interview and I did great, but now I have the job and I don't have to do as well. And so they kind of let themselves down and it's like, oh, I got the job and it's done. No, you should work that job like you're being interviewed all the time. And you're always being watched, and you should create a work ethic like you're always being interviewed. So you're always selling yourself on the job, because your bosses and your supervisors or managers are looking at you, and they're looking for people who can make the most money in the company. And if you're doing your job well, you become indispensable, and they'll look at promotion opportunities. Opportunities will just come your way. They'll find you. The doors are just open if you work that way and think, how can I make money for that company? All right, let's go on to that resume.
So this one is a bit more simple, but what's the history of this one?
So this resume follows the same formatting, same kind of theme, where there's a professional summary, lists the skills, has the education, lists just the name, the phone number, the email, not where they live. Then it does kind of have the different positions. This particular resume is interesting. The person that got employed, the company that hired this person, apparently their supervisor or their manager was actually in school, gaining more skills to be able to move up in higher management, and presented this resume in the class. They were talking specifically about resumes, brought this person's resume in to the class because it was pertained to that. And this was just recently. This was within the last month or two. And this resume actually won out of all the class for the best resume, voted on by the teacher and the students at the time. So there's some good things to have that in there. It's maybe not my best resume I've ever helped someone with, but it's very, like you said, very simple. It's very clean. It does have some color to it. So it looks very nice.
And that's this other one met that same criteria, is you don't get lost in the resumes, and I think that's
Correct.
part of what helped it. You know where you're going. It's got the headings and it's got bullet points. It's got white space, but it's not too blocky with the text. And
Correct.
And so I would probably recommend a little bit more of design element as digital media professionals. But
Yes.
I wanted to point that out. Of this did win in a contest.
That was great. The person was able to call me up and say, thank you for helping with your resume, and I just thought you should know it won. And I was confused on what that meant, and then they explained that they were in school, so I thought, okay, we're doing something right here at Workforce Services.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
I've been on the interviewing panel and seen a lot of resumes, and I've seen crazy resumes where there's like pictures of themselves, and I've seen where if they're a veteran, there's the United States flag on there. And I'm thinking about the movie where Legally Blonde, where she uses pink paper and sprays it with perfume, right? And a lot of times the concept there is like, you got to stand out. You've got to be noticed. Your resume has to grab their attention. And so there is this concept that you know, especially if it's a very competitive job, you do have to stand out. So what are your thoughts on standing out from the norm and some of these like little tactics that I'm seeing?
I think it's back to what James said. You guys should be the creative ones out there. Have some fun with the resume. Come up with some good, schemes. If it looks good to you, it probably looks good to someone else. Network. Ask someone, what do you think of this resume? Get a feel for that. But also try not to get lost in making it simple enough too. But I think you can give it a splash of your personality without doing some of those things that maybe aren't as popular, to have pictures and things that could, maybe hurt you for the job when, it shouldn't. I mean, a veteran, we should not, do that, but maybe it does hurt somebody. So you just want to be careful not to have anything on there that could take away from you getting that opportunity to, once again, James, we're going to make sure this is the point. Get the interview. That's all this is for. It's not to get the job. We want to do that when we do our in-person, training and things. That's when you get to shine. But this should just get you in the door.
Well, perfect. Well, I think we're through on time. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come talk to you. And I hope all of you will take the opportunity to come talk with either these guys or guys like this that can actually help you and look at your resume and see what opportunities they can give you. Any parting words? Or
I think I like what Bryce was saying, that the resume, again, is just to get you the interview. And there's a whole other skill set that you need to work on in researching the company and having interview skills. And so this is just one step of the onboarding process. And I can't stress enough about creating opportunities for yourself through networking, unpaid internships. Put yourself in a position of opportunity. Get out there and give back to the community, do some service projects, and do a good job and be noticed, and that pays off.
I guess my final would be, just in the times that we're in now, where individuals are more home, this would be the best time to, if you have the time, to put this plan together. What's your cover letter look like? What does your resume look like? What's your social media doing? Maybe clean that up if it's not where you want it to be, and really take advantage of this time that's very unique in where we're at, so that when things get back to normal, you'll be able to have a solid plan in place. So that would just be my advice during this kind of crazy time we're in right now. So
absolutely.
Oh, we're not 6 feet apart either.
Well, social distancing, we'll keep that up in our next video. So.
We're willing to contaminate ourselves for you.
Right.
Well, that's so
you guys matter. So.
You guys matter, and you're all awesome. It's really neat for me to see the work you all put out. And I'm not worried about you. You've got some good things coming. We're figuring out a few pieces that will help you in the process, but I look forward to seeing more of your work.